Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I want to talk about some differences I observe in workplace culture in the United States compared to here in Taiwan. Now, I've never worked a day here in Taiwan, but I interact with a lot of people who are at work, right? Hotel staff, waiters at the restaurants, and I feel qualified to talk about it because I've seen a lot of the interactions and there are starking differences. Let's start by talking about some two workplace experiences I had back home that almost landed me in hot water and how they might have played out here in Taiwan. I'm a math professor at Glendale Community College, about 30,000 students, and I have good chemistry with all of my students, sometimes a little bit too good. We'll get to that in a moment. But we had a new employee, and when I had introduced myself to her, I caused a little bit of drama because I accidentally hit the wrong chords with her. What had happened was I'm very shy, and I often don't have good subjects to talk. I don't follow sports or music or recent events, and so the only thing I was thinking about was my coming trip to Taiwan. This was just before I left. And here in Taiwan, our emergency phone number is 119 compared to 911 back home, obviously. And so, just as a piece of trivia, I told her that and I asked her, well, which number do you prefer, 911 or 119? She didn't have an answer and she said she had to get going and she left, and that was that. Well, a couple days later, HR comes to me and says that she had been really upset that I had even brought up the concept of calling 911. HR told me that don't worry about it, but she had some life drama in the past that required calling 911 or that bordered on 911, and the discussion was kind of uh, uh, traumatic to her. I apologized and I told HR, I'll make a note to be mindful of that. And long story short, after that interaction, I really hate talking to her now because I never know the next word that might trip her. Even when we're talking about stuff going on at the school, I get very nervous talking to her. Especially if it's just the two of us, right? If there's a third person, maybe I could feel a little bit more comfortable. But even then, I try to make it short and keep the discussions to like short 1 or 2 word answers, right? When I talk to her, and now, granted, does she feel more comfortable that I'm not talking to her? Probably. What we're forgetting is that for every time you feel comfortable because we don't have sensitive subjects at work, whether they be politics or religion or something, right? For every time you don't hear anything like that, there might be 10 times you didn't hear a creative subject at work because somebody is too afraid to open their mouth. Now, let me give you an example that might happen. Might. Not my example, but let's imagine I were teaching chemistry, right? And I did labs with the students. Now, in chemistry class, we're really sensitive about all sorts of precautions, right? Let's imagine that one day I forgot to follow the rules and I accidentally did some kind of chemical reaction that didn't hurt anybody, and it resulted in some new discovery, a cure for cancer, a new chemical element. But it was a very, very scary thing. I accidentally did something that could have blown up the school. Now, what do you think I'm going to do next? Do I share that with the school? Hey, I almost blew up your school. Instead, I created this new chemical element. Or do I try to hide it under the rug? I'll let you think about that, right? Now, if we were here in Taiwan, right, I think most people could be grateful. Hey, nothing happened, and look at what we now have—a new chemical element, right? Very different culture, in my opinion. Now, that's not so far-fetched, actually. You got to remember when Mary and Pierre Curie discovered what they discovered. You got to remember. I'll let you read about it, but they had conjectured that uranium ore might contain 2 other radioactive elements and wanted to isolate them. Now, uranium ore is very expensive. If you just go out and buy a ton of uranium ore, especially for the Currys before they had won their Nobel Prizes, right? But they came up with an idea. You see, uranium ore was, at the time, was mostly used to make glass. And so they had contacted a glass factory in Ireland, expressing their interest in this research. Can we have some of your waste product after extracting the uranium? And memos showed that the Irish company actually wrote, "These 2 idiots from France think there's anything valuable in our waste material," right? And so you can only imagine in the US, if you waste a lot of time doing research that nobody is going to think about, and you have to do that on your own time, right? Imagine, I think that some of the waste that GCC is throwing away might be precious, and I want to go home and build something out of it. First of all, I got to do that out of my own time, right? And second, even when I do discover something, the overall sentiment is this guy was wasting time, right? It's just like the coworker who didn't want to hear anything. Now, was it traumatic for her to hear about 911? Probably. But what's my opinion on it? Get over it. The 911 call that she had to make in the past, or was called on her, whatever the situation is, the more she can talk about it, I bet the quicker she gets over and more people can learn from it, right? I personally think, don't tell her this, but I personally think she's being selfish by bottling it up and making everybody nervous when they want to tell her about a cure for cancer, right? That's my personal opinion on it, right? Imagine if Mary Curie were sensitive, and the first time when Pierre Curie hit on her, she went to HR and complained, right? Imagine where we would be today, right? In today's world, that might not be so far-fetched. You got to remember, she actually said no the first time he proposed to her. In today's world, she'd probably go up to HR, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum, 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum, 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 bum.